Part 1. The first darkness. Light goes out. The wind whispered through the forest as if warning the group not to proceed, but they were too loud, too alive, and too skeptical to listen. Laughter bounced between the trees as 5 college students trudged up the dirt path toward the old hunter's cabin, deep in the woods outside of Gray Ridge. Mark Evans, a 22-year-old senior studying psychology, walked ahead with a flashlight and a grin. He loved debunking ghost stories. His girlfriend, Chloe Sanders, clung to his arm, glancing nervously at the shadows. "I don't know, Mark," she whispered. "This place feels wrong." "That's because it's abandoned," he replied with a chuckle. "Creepy lighting, peeling walls, and no electricity tend to do that." Behind them walked Jason Miller, Mark's best friend, along with Emily Rhodes and Adam Lopez. They were here for what was supposed to be a night of drinking, dares, and maybe a few spooky stories. But Mark had other plans. "I found this online," he announced once they were inside the cabin. "A ritual. Something called the devil turned off the light." Jason raised an eyebrow. "Sounds cheesy." "No, hear me out. You go into a dark room alone, close the door, and whisper the demon's name 3 times. Then you wait. If nothing happens in 5 minutes, you're good. But if he answers..." "You're not actually going to do it," Chloe said, alarmed. Mark smiled. "Of course I am." The group gathered in what was once a bathroom, small, grimy, and windowless, the perfect place for total darkness. "No flashlight, no phone," Mark said, taking off his smartwatch. He handed it to Jason. "Just me in the dark." "What's the name?" Emily asked. Mark smirked. "Zal'haron, ancient supposedly. The name was removed from most demonology texts. Only fragments remain." "Where'd you even find that?" Jason asked. "A thread on a banned Reddit forum," Mark replied. "Guy claimed it's the last ritual you'll ever try." "Great. That's comforting," Chloe muttered. 5 minutes, Mark said. "Then you knock, okay?" The door closed. Click. Inside, Mark sat on the edge of the bathtub, his hands in his lap. The dark pressed in like a heavy curtain. He closed his eyes and whispered, "Zal'haron, Zal'haron." Nothing, then something. A creak behind him, a breath, not his. A low whisper like wind crawling through a crack. Mark, his blood ran cold. He opened his eyes. Black, no outlines, no shapes. Then the light bulb overhead flickered once, then died completely. The bathroom was not empty anymore. Outside, Jason glanced at his phone. "It's been 4.5 minutes. Should we knock?" Chloe's foot tapped nervously. "Please, just check, please." Jason knocked. "Mark, you good?" No answer. He knocked harder. "Dude, still nothing." Chloe grabbed the doorknob and twisted. It wouldn't budge. Jason shoved harder, and the door finally swung open, and Chloe screamed. Mark was slumped against the wall, head tilted back, mouth hanging open unnaturally wide. His eyes were missing, torn out, jagged flesh where they should have been. His jaw hung as if broken, his tongue bloated and black. Blood streaked the mirror, and in it someone had written, "I like the dark." Jason stumbled backward. Emily screamed. Adam threw up in the hallway. But Chloe, she didn't scream again. She just stared into the bathroom mirror, frozen. For a moment, she thought she saw Mark still standing there, smiling. The police didn't believe them. "Looks like a freak accident or maybe a wild animal," said one of the officers as they zipped the body into a black bag. Bathroom window was open. "But there's no window," Jason argued. "None." The officer shrugged. "Then someone in your group is lying. No charges were filed. There was no murder weapon, no fingerprints. No sign of forced entry. No sign even that Mark had screamed or resisted. Just darkness." Chloe didn't speak for 2 days. She kept staring into reflections, mirrors, windows, even puddles. "I saw him," she whispered to Jason finally, "in the mirror, after he died." Jason put a hand on her shoulder. "You were in shock." "No." Her voice was firm. "He smiled at me, but it wasn't him." That night, the lights in her apartment flickered. Jason couldn't sleep. He needed to know more. He returned to the same thread Mark had used. It had been deleted. But he found archived screenshots and a single phrase that stood out. "Zal'haron is not summoned. He notices." Every story was the same. A person alone in the dark, a whisper of the name, a death, no escape from the dark once he's seen you. Jason reached out to Dr. Harold Kent, a folklore professor at their college. "The name rings bells," Kent said. "Middle Eastern demonology, mostly oral tradition. Name translates roughly to he who snuffs light, a being said to live in shadow, appearing only when you look for him." "Could he be real?" Jason asked. Kent's expression changed. Do you really want the answer to that? Mark's funeral was a closed casket. Chloe couldn't stop shaking as she approached it. Something inside her begged her not to look. During the eulogy, the lights in the church flickered. Twice. The priest paused. Old wiring, he said. This place was built in the 60s. But Chloe saw something again. Just a flicker in the polished wood of the casket. A reflection. Mark smiling. That night, Chloe sat alone in her apartment. Every light on, music playing, TV volume high. Then, click. The power went out. She froze, heart racing. She reached for her phone, 1% battery. She grabbed a flashlight. It flickered weakly. Then a whisper right behind her. Chloe. She screamed and ran into the hallway, pounding on Jason's door across the hall. He opened it, confused and groggy. She fell into his arms. He's here. I heard him. Jason looked over her shoulder. The light in her room flickered back on, but the reflection in the hallway mirror behind her didn't show either of them. Jason stayed up all night researching. Chloe slept on his couch, clutching his dog for comfort. In the morning, they found a message carved into the wall near his front door. 1 by 1. When the light goes out. Part 2, The Second Darkness. No one leaves. A week had passed since Mark's death. A week since Chloe heard his voice in the dark. Since the reflection showed nothing behind her. Jason had moved into Chloe's apartment temporarily. He didn't say it out loud, but the fear clung to them both. And still, each night around 3 a.m., the power would flicker, dim, and die for precisely 1 minute. On the 8th night, the lights didn't come back. Jason raced to the breaker. Everything looked normal. He checked outside. The street lamps were on, but only their building sat in a pool of darkness. He returned to the apartment to find Chloe standing by the living room mirror, silent. She didn't blink. Chloe, he said. She turned slowly. He's in the reflection, but only when I look away. Jason brought in his old friend, Emily Rhodes, who had been at the cabin the night of Mark's death. She was skeptical, but after hearing Chloe's story, she agreed to stay for the night. Safety in numbers. Jason rigged up motion sensor cameras, candles, battery-powered lights, an emergency backup generator. They weren't playing anymore. That night, they all stayed in the living room. At 3:16 a.m., every motion light turned on at once. Chloe gasped. Something's in the hallway. Jason grabbed his flashlight and stepped into the corridor. Cold. Still. Then he heard it. Right behind him. Turn around. He did. Nothing. Then a shriek. Not in front of him, from the apartment. He ran back in and found Emily in the bathtub. Blood streaming from her ears. Eyes rolled up. She was still breathing, but just barely. Chloe stood frozen in the corner, whispering, "He's coming. He knows your name now." Detective Lyle Carter had seen a lot in his 30 years on the force, but he couldn't make sense of this. A young woman catatonic in a blood-filled tub, no wounds, no trauma. 2 others terrified and rambling about mirrors and shadows. Another death just a week earlier in similar strange circumstances. Carter questioned them. "There's something killing people in the dark," Jason said. "He watches through reflections. It's real." Carter didn't laugh. He believed in evil, but not like this. "I'll post a car outside your apartment," he said, "just in case." He didn't tell them he was planning to watch them himself that night. From the front seat of his unmarked cruiser, 2:54 a.m., the street outside Chloe's apartment was empty, quiet. Carter sipped his coffee and yawned. 3 a.m., the air grew cold. His car windows fogged from the inside. He rubbed them clear and squinted at the front door. Then, 3:17, the lights in the building died. All of them. His own dashboard lights flickered. Suddenly his body seized. Muscles locked. Heart pounding. He tried to radio for backup. Only static. Then, from the rearview mirror, a voice, "You're watching the wrong side." He turned. Nothing. A handprint appeared on the inside of the windshield. Then another, and another. The final thing Carter saw was his own face, burning, blistering in the mirror. In the morning, he was found in his cruiser, his skin blackened, eyes melted, clutching his flashlight still on. Jason connected the dots. 3 victims. Mark performed the ritual. Emily witnessed the aftermath. Carter investigated it. Each touched the darkness in some way. Each was marked. He dove into old archives and online forums, dozens of similar cases, all 10 years apart. Same pattern, a ritual, a blackout, unexplained deaths. Zal'haron wasn't just a spirit. He was a parasite. He fed on curiosity, then spread through fear. But Jason also found something else. In one thread, a survivor claimed, he cannot enter where no reflection exists, shatter the mirrors, burn the glass, or stay in light forever. Jason and Chloe tore down every mirror in the apartment. Windows were blacked out, chrome surfaces scratched, screens turned to face the wall. They slept under a battery-powered floodlight. It didn't matter. That night, Chloe woke up to whispering. She looked up. The screen of her turned-off TV glowed faintly, and in it, Mark stood behind her, head tilted, smiling. Jason had a plan. Not a good one, but the only one. They'd return to the hunter's cabin, where it all started. He believed if they could confront Zal'haron there, they might sever the connection, end the ritual once and for all. Chloe agreed. She had nothing left to lose. Emily had slipped into a coma. Adam, the fifth person at the original party, had fled the state after receiving a midnight phone call from a number that had been disconnected for years. He didn't say goodbye. He just left. They brought candles, salt, backup batteries, and a camcorder. Jason carved protective symbols around the room using chalk and ash based on what he'd found online. Chloe stood in the center of the room, holding a mirror shard. Jason began recording. "We're not summoning you," he said aloud. "We're ending this. Come out." They waited. The room dimmed. The camera screen flickered. Then everything went black. Jason could hear Chloe breathing, then gasping. "Jason, he's here." A second voice. "You brought her back to me." Jason struck a match. For a moment he saw it. A shape in the corner, tall, blacker than black, long fingers reaching out for Chloe. He threw salt at it. The shape recoiled, but only briefly. The match burned out. Darkness again. Jason shouted, "We didn't call you. We don't want you." But the demon didn't need an invitation anymore. It had been watching since the first whisper. The candle blew out. Chloe screamed. Then silence. Jason lit another match and saw Chloe collapsed. Her face was pale. Her eyes still open, glassy. The mirror shard beside her glowed faintly, then cracked. Jason heard one final whisper, "You're the last." Then the light dies forever. Jason survived. He doesn't know how. He staggered out of the woods, face pale, eyes red-rimmed, hands covered in ash and glass. He never returned to school. He never saw Adam again. Emily never woke up. Chloe was buried next to Mark, but her grave cracked open 3 days later, as if something had tried to crawl out. The town of Grey Ridge experienced rolling blackouts for the next 3 weeks. In a hidden forum, a new thread appears, titled "The Devil Turned Off the Light," real footage from a survivor. Jason uploads the cabin recording. It ends abruptly, right as Chloe screams and the candles blow out. The final frame shows her face distorted in the dark and a shadow looming behind her, whispering something inaudible. Except, if you play it backwards, the message is clear. Your name. I know it now. Part 3. The Final Darkness. Devil in the Room. Jason Miller hadn't spoken to anyone in 3 weeks. His apartment was pitch black. Not from power loss. He had blacked out every window, unplugged every electronic device, and shattered every reflective surface. The only light came from a single, constantly burning lantern, fueled by oil he imported himself. He didn't sleep. He didn't dream. Because every time he closed his eyes, he saw them. Chloe, Mark, Emily, smiling in ways human mouths weren't built to smile. They had been taken by the dark. And now the dark was whispering his name. Begin. It started small. The usual, the creaking floorboards, the cold breath on his neck, the mirrorless screen that sometimes flickered when nothing was plugged in. But now the whispers came even with the light on. At 3:17 a.m. each night he would hear, "Jason, Jason, I'm in the room." And once, only once, the voice added, "You brought them to me. Now bring yourself." He scribbled symbols in salt across the floor. He stopped eating warm food. He spoke aloud to nothing. Jason wasn't trying to fight anymore. He was trying to bargain. One rainy evening, a knock came at the door. Jason grabbed a kitchen knife and looked through the peephole. A man stood there in a long brown coat, soaked from head to toe, a briefcase in one hand and eyes that looked like they hadn't slept in decades. "My name is Dr. Malcolm Reeve," he said through the door. "You uploaded the footage." Jason opened the door without a word. Inside, Malcolm explained everything. He'd been tracking Zal'haron for 20 years. He'd seen the demon manifest in Lebanon, then again in Venezuela, then Hungary. Every 10 years, every time, the ritual reappears in some digital form, like it wants to be found, spread. That recording you uploaded, it's now viral on the dark web. Jason buried his head in his hands. I didn't think anyone would believe it. They didn't, but the ones who watch it too long. Malcolm opened his briefcase and pulled out a stack of police reports, obituaries, psychiatric evaluations. They all died in the dark. Jason looked up. So how do we end it? Malcolm lit a match. We burned the last reflection. The plan was dangerous. Malcolm had pieced together a ritual, not to banish Zal'haron, but to trap him in a vessel of reflective silver. Ancient magic. Forgotten theology. The vessel? A large obsidian mirror, rumored to have been used in necromantic rituals in the 1700s. They would lure the demon into it, seal it with blood, fire, and darkness, then shatter the mirror under consecrated light. You understand, Malcolm warned. We may not survive this. Jason nodded. I haven't survived anything since Chloe died. The ritual required total isolation, so they chose an abandoned warehouse on the edge of Grey Ridge. Jason and Malcolm set up the room. The obsidian mirror stood against the far wall, surrounded by salt, bones, and old chains inscribed with holy markings. Jason's blood was smeared on the floor in a sigil pattern. The air was still. The only light came from 7 black candles, each representing a soul lost to the demon. 3 a.m. Malcolm began chanting. Jason stood in front of the mirror and whispered, Zal'haron, Zal'haron, Zal'haron. Then he turned off the last light. Immediately, the temperature dropped. Jason's breath fogged. Malcolm's voice faltered for a second, then regained rhythm. Then a groan, low and unnatural. From the shadows came a shape, towering, shifting, always facing the mirror no matter where you looked. Jason's ears bled, his legs buckled, but he kept his gaze locked forward. The shape stopped, and in the mirror, Chloe's face appeared. Then Mark's, Emily's, even Carter. Their faces wept, melted, screamed, all trying to climb out of the glass. Jason whispered, Take me. Let them go. But the demon didn't respond. Instead, the room filled with darkness like a flood. The candles blew out. Malcolm shouted, Now, Jason! Jason drew a silver knife and slashed his palm, smearing the blood across the top of the mirror. The demon shrieked, a sound not heard but felt, like thousands of fingernails clawing inside your brain. Malcolm threw a flask of blessed oil against the mirror, and Jason lit a flare. The fire roared to life. The mirror shook, the faces within it screaming silently, then fading. Zal'haron reared into view, a tangle of limbs and shadows with no true form pushing against the edges of the glass. Jason screamed as the heat grew unbearable. Malcolm cried out, Shatter it! Jason lifted a hammer and slammed into the mirror. Twice. The third hit broke it. A pulse of black energy knocked both men off their feet. Then, silence. Morning light spilled through the broken warehouse windows. Jason woke first, bleeding, burned, but alive. Malcolm lay beside him, not moving, his eyes open but blind, his mouth twisted in a grin that didn't belong to him. Jason crawled over. Malcolm? The older man whispered. He's not gone, only trapped. Someone will always turn off the light. And then he died. Jason tried to tell the authorities about the demon, the deaths, the ritual. But all they saw was a broken man beside a warehouse fire and a pile of shattered glass. He was arrested, held for mental evaluation, then quietly released weeks later. No charges, but the footage from that night, it went missing, and on a quiet server in the dark corners of the internet, a new file appeared, titled simply Z-Mirror Footage Raw.mp4. Then 1, then 7, then 666. Jason left Grey Ridge, traveled as far north as he could. No phone, no screen, no mirrors. He bought a small cabin near the edge of a frozen lake, powered only by solar panels, no lights unless he lit them, no images unless he drew them. But on the first night at exactly 3:17 a.m., the candle flickered. The mirror he swore he never installed stood in the corner, and in it, Mark, Chloe, and Emily stood watching him. Their mouths opened in unison and whispered, He's in the room. Epilogue. You've read this far. You followed Jason's story. You've seen his name, the ritual, the time, and now perhaps you're wondering what happens if you turn off your light tonight. At 3:17 a.m., will you see your own reflection, or will you see nothing at all? Either way, he's waiting.